I'm not a lawyer, but apparently Caylee Anthony is a legal advocate.
I am a legal advocate. I am a researcher. I've been in the legal field since 2011.
Okay, so if you're trying to figure out or remember why a ton of people are upset about Caylee Anthony's appearance on TikTok, let me give you a Caylee Anthony trial recap. On July 15, 2008, Cindy Anthony called 911 to report that her daughter, Caylee Anthony, had stolen her car and some money from her.
Hello.
Hi, I drove to the police department here on Pershing. If you guys are closed, I need to bring someone into the police department. Can you tell me where the closest one I can come into?
What are you trying to accomplish by bringing them to the station?
I have a 22-year-old person that has grand theft sitting in my auto with me.
So the 22-year-old person stole something?
Yes.
Is this a relative?
Yes.
Where did they steal it from?
My car and also money.
Okay, is this your son?
Daughter.
Okay, so your daughter stole money from your car?
No, my car was stolen. We retrieved it today. We found out where it was at. I retrieved it. I've got that, and I've got affidavit for my banking account. I want to bring her in. I want to press charges.
Where did all of this happen?
Oh, it's been happening.
No, but I need to establish a jurisdiction is what I'm trying.
Oh, I live in Orlando.
That's actually going to be in the jurisdiction of the sheriff's office, ma'am, not the Orlando Police Department.
All right.
But what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer you to the sheriff's communications section, and you can determine that. Hold on.
Okay.
After the first call, Cindy, who was in the car with Caylee at that point, then drove home. And while Cindy's initial phone call to 911 was focused on the stolen car and money, her real concern at that moment was finding out where Caylee's 2-year-old daughter, Caylee Anthony, was, because about a month before that, Caylee left her parents' home with 2-year-old Caylee and said she was heading to work, and a sitter by the name of Zanny the nanny was going to watch Caylee for her. But after that day, Caylee and Caylee just didn't come back. And after 31 days of not seeing or speaking to her granddaughter, Cindy Anthony wanted answers.
I was urgently trying to get her to take me to see Caylee, because she kept insisting that Caylee was spending the night with Zanny. And I said, well, she doesn't need to do that anymore, so we need to get her. And Casey kept insisting that Caylee would probably already be asleep by that time, and she didn't want to disturb her, that we could go the next day. And I didn't care if we were up all night, if it disrupted Caylee's sleep, that I would stay up all night and not go to work the next day. If it became an issue that Caylee wasn't able to sleep and someone wasn't going to get any sleep, I volunteered to be the one. I didn't care. I wanted to see Caylee. And I was getting more irritated and was not happy with that answer, that I threatened again to call the police. And I just had enough of not hearing anything. So then I made another phone call to 911.
I have someone here that I need to be arrested in my home.
They're there right now?
A possible missing child. I have a 3-year-old that's been missing for a month.
A 3-year-old?
Yes.
Have you reported that?
I'm trying to do that now, ma'am.
Okay, what did the person do that you need arrested?
My daughter, for stealing an auto and stealing money. I already spoke with someone. They said they would patch me through the Orlando Sheriff's Department and have a deputy here. I was in the car. I was going to drive her to the police station, and no one's open. They said they would bring a deputy to my home when I got home to call them.
So she stole your vehicle?
Yes.
When did she do that?
On the 30th. I just got it back from the impound. I'd like to speak to an officer. Can you have someone come out to my house?
She would have been on my nerves too.
Okay, I gotta ask you these questions so I can put them in the call, okay?
Okay.
Casey's there right now?
Yes, I got her. I finally found her after a month. She's been missing for a month. I found her, but we can't find my granddaughter.
Okay, we'll have a deputy out to you as soon as one's available, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So while Cindy is at the house waiting for police to arrive, she overhears her daughter Caylee say something to her brother, which prompts Cindy to make a third call to police that night.
So I was pacing back and forth between the hallway from the living room to the garage, into the living room to Casey's room, and back and forth. I was just pacing because I was getting angrier and angrier and more upset as I was waiting. Casey was on the floor crying, and I overheard her tell me that Caylee had been gone for 31 days and that Zanny had taken her. I lost it. I just went into the room and started yelling at Casey and said, what do you mean she's been gone? Why didn't you tell me? Swore at her and hit the bed and ran out and called the police again.
911, what's your emergency? I called a little bit ago, the deputy sheriff saying I found out my granddaughter has been taken. She has been missing for a month. Her mother finally admitted that she's been missing.
Okay, what is
here now?
Okay.
My daughter finally admitted that the baby's in the store. I need to find her.
Your daughter admitted that the baby is where?
But the babysitter took her a month ago that my daughter's been looking for. I told you my daughter was missing for a month. I just found her today, but I can't find my granddaughter. And she just admitted to me that she's been trying to find her herself. There's something wrong. I found my daughter's car today, and it smells like there's been a dead body in the damn car.
Okay, what is the 3-year-old's name?
Caylee, Caylee, Anthony. Casey says Zanny took her a month ago. She's been missing for a month.
Okay, I understand. Can you calm down for me for just a minute? And I need to know what's going on, okay? Is your daughter there?
I'm on the phone with them.
Is your daughter there?
Yes.
Can I speak with her?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Hi. Well, can you tell me what's going on a little bit?
I'm sorry?
Can you tell me a little bit what's going on?
My daughter's been missing for the last 31 days.
And you know who has her?
I know who has her. I've tried to contact her. I actually received a phone call today, now from a number that is no longer in service. I did get to speak to my daughter for about a minute.
Okay, did you guys call and report a vehicle stolen?
Yes, my mom did.
Okay, so there's been a vehicle stolen too?
No, this was my vehicle.
So now your 3-year-old daughter is missing. Caylee Anthony.
Yes.
White female.
Anthony. Yes, white female.
3 years old, 8/9/2005 is her date of birth?
Yes.
And you last saw her a month ago?
31 days. From 31 days.
Who has her? Do you have a name?
Her name is Zenaida Fernandez Gonzalez.
Who is that? Babysitter?
She's been my nanny for about a year and a half, almost 2 years.
Why are you calling now? Why didn't you call 31 days ago?
I've been looking for her and have gone through other resources to try to find her, which was stupid. Okay, I think the officers are here.
The officers are there?
Yes.
Okay, hold on a second. Don't hang up with me yet.
And this is what kicks off the massive case surrounding the death of 2-year-old Caylee Anthony. Police search for Caylee Anthony, and about 5 months after she was first reported missing by her grandmother, Caylee's remains are found on December 11, 2008 in a wooded area less than a mile away from the Anthony's home. And about 2.5 years after that, May 24th, 2011, Caylee Anthony's criminal trial begins. Prosecutors argued that Caylee Anthony used chloroform, which is a chemical compound that can be used to knock someone unconscious, and then covered her mouth and nose with duct tape before leaving her in the trunk of a car and then eventually burying her.
And you will learn that the only evidence indicating the cause of death of Caylee Marie Anthony are the 3 pieces of duct tape covering her nose and mouth. The evidence in this case will establish that there is no other reason for the placement of multiple pieces of duct tape on this child's face, mouth, and nose other than the specific intent to end that child's life.
Now, the defense, on the other hand, had a different story. They said that Caylee probably drowned in the family's home pool.
Now, everyone wants to know what happened. How in the world can a mother wait 30 days before ever reporting her child missing? It's insane. It's bizarre. Something's just not right about that. Well, the answer is actually relatively simple. She never was missing. Caylee Anthony died on June 16, 2008, when she drowned in her family's swimming pool.
And the defense claimed that George, Casey's dad, covered up the drowning in order to spare his daughter from getting charged with child neglect. There was a lot happening in this case. Now, a bunch of people were called to testify in this trial, including Casey's parents. And over the course of the trial, they revealed that Caylee had been lying to them about a lot of stuff.
Now, let me ask you this. Did you ever go to a sports authority to verify if Caylee worked there?
Absolutely, I did, yes. Because I went to go surprise my daughter at lunch. Yes.
And it had nothing to do with the fact that you suspected she was not working?
That was a twofold thing, yes, to see if she was there. And if she was there, great, terrific, I'll take her out to lunch.
And you found out she wasn't working there?
I found out that she was not employed there.
At some point in time, did you decide that you were going to drive out to Universal Studios?
Yes, ma'am. I believe it was July 3rd.
All right. And what prompted that?
Earlier that day, I had some issues, and I really wanted to talk to Casey about those issues, and I really wanted to see Caylee. I wanted to spend at least one day with her, and I hadn't seen her for so long. So I talked to Casey earlier, and Casey said she was, at Universal. So I figured I'm just going to go ahead and drive to Universal Studios. Walked into the park and went to guest services. I didn't buy a ticket. I figured she would just meet me down at guest services, and then I would be able to talk to her and then be able to pick up Caylee from that point. I didn't tell her I was coming. So when I got to guest services, I called Casey from my cell phone, and I just waited there and told her that I was there, and she told me that she was not there.
At Universal in Orlando?
Right. She was not at Universal. She told me that she was actually in Jacksonville, Florida. So it was a shock, and I was upset. I didn't know what to think because I had realized that she had lied to me for the last couple days.
It's also discovered that there is no Zanny the nanny. But at the end of the day, this was a circumstantial case. There was a search on the Anthony's home computer for chloroform, but the chief medical examiner testified that a toxicologist tested Caylee's bones and found no presence of chloroform.
And as a toxicologist, the specific request was to look for chloroform and other what you call volatile chemicals. Is that right?
That is correct.
Meaning you were looking for chloroform and some form of poison.
Volatiles would have been alcohol, isopropanol.
Any kind of chemical that might have contributed to the cause of this child's death.
Yes.
The results were negative as to each and every one.
That is correct.
The medical examiner also testified that while she concluded the manner of death was homicide, she could not determine the cause of death.
Do you have an opinion as to the manner of death in this case?
Homicide. It's based on three main items. First, we know from observational studies that it is a red flag that when a child is not reported immediately to authorities, either with an injury, that's something we look for foul play. The other thing that makes it a homicide is that the body was hidden. A child's body is thrown out, hidden in a field. We know that is one of the things we look for when we are looking for a homicide. And the last would be the duct tape, somewhere located on the lower half of this face. There is no child that should have duct tape on its face when it dies. There is no reason to put duct tape on the face after they die. Based on our experience, we've seen that in cases of homicide.
Now, how does the concept of cause of death differ from the concept of manner of death?
Well, the cause of death is the injury or the disease that initiates the chain of events that ultimately results in the child dying.
Can you render a medical conclusion on the cause of death?
What I put was homicide of undetermined means. I believe we can reliably say it's a homicide, but I don't know the means for which that homicide occurred.
Meaning she didn't say it was drowning, she also didn't say it was suffocation, and she also didn't say it was chloroform. In closings, the state argued that Casey's motivation to kill Caylee was because she didn't want the responsibility of parenthood anymore and wanted to live a carefree life.
When you have a child, that child becomes your life. This case is about the clash between that responsibility and the expectations that go with it and the life that Caylee Anthony wanted to have. When Caylee was born, Casey was saddled with expectations and responsibilities. Her response to those new responsibilities, as the evidence has shown in this case, was to lie.
The defense, on the other hand, focused their closing arguments on highlighting that the state did not meet their burden of proof.
At the end of the day, when everything is said and done, the one question will never be answered. The key question in this case will never be answered. It can never be proven. And that is, how did Caylee die? What is proven beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt? Not just some, but every single one. Those questions were never answered. That evidence was never presented to you. They didn't come right out the gate and show you the evidence. They gave you 2 weeks of testimony that was completely irrelevant and served only one purpose. And that was to paint Caylee Anthony as a slut, as a party girl, as a girl who lies, and has absolutely nothing to do with how Caylee died. If you have questions, then it was not proven. And that's as simple as it goes.
On July 5th, 2011, a little over 3 years since Caylee was last seen alive, a jury of 7 women and 5 men found Caylee Anthony.
As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, verdict as to count 3, we, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 4. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 5. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. As to the charge of providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict as to count 6. We, the jury, find the defendant We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. Providing false information to a law enforcement officer, verdict is to count 7. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of providing false information to a law enforcement officer as charged in the indictment. Signed foreperson.
Caylee Anthony was sentenced to 1 year in jail, but because of time served after the verdict was read, she only had to spend another 10 days in jail before she was released. Now, following the trial, a lot of jurors ended up speaking out, and one man in particular told People magazine, quote, "Generally, none of us liked Caylee Anthony at all. She seems like a horrible person. But the prosecutors did not give us enough evidence to convict. They gave us a lot of stuff that makes us think she probably did something wrong, but not beyond a reasonable doubt." It's also worth noting that the babysitter, Zanny the nanny, wasn't a real babysitter, but she was a real person, and she sued Caylee Anthony for defamation. Zanny had no connection to Caylee or Caylee, and she claimed that Caylee's false statements about her damaged her reputation, led to harassment, and caused her emotional distress. But a judge ruled that Caylee's statements, although they were lies, were part of a legal proceeding, and therefore they're protected under Florida law from being used as the basis for a civil lawsuit. So that's that. Not sure if Caylee's gonna stick around on TikTok, but that's the recap of her case.